Good afternoon. My name is Jongwook Park, and I was born and raised in South Korea, and then I moved to Canada. I'm so pleased to have a show at Gallery Macular, and the title of the show is Ontology. In recent years, after I moved to Canada, my social limitation increased due to the linguistic barrier. Of course, I knew that would be challenging and difficult, but learning entirely different languages from my mother tongue is much harder than I thought. But ironically, that language difficulty motivated me to pursue art, and my visual language has become more fluent than my verbal language. Through the series of the work, I made an effort to visualize the unvisualized things inside of people's mind and the fears and the struggles of human beings using my visual vocabulary. Well, one of the sources of inspiration for me to create art is the traditional Korean folk paintings. I put some elements of the Korean folk paintings in my work to illustrate my mindscape. Actually, I grew up looking at the calendars hung on the walls, at home, at restaurants, at the stores, and those were a lot of Korean folk paintings printed on the calendars. It looks cheap and cheesy. It's not like a masterful stuff, but that inspired me, and I borrowing the concept of heroism and fantasy from them. I render my mixed feelings and narratives on paper using black pens. And those things like comic books, manga, and graphic novels, whatever they're called, is also one of my primary inspiration. And I use them. I used to use the element of comic books to build my characters of my work. Through the series of the work, I deal with the subject of such things people today are afraid of, such as loneliness, depression, alienation, the fear of being different, the fear of something unknown or unfamiliar. And there are also many kinds of trauma which comes from the memory that I was bullied when I was a kid. That was a painful experience, but I still don't know why I had to get bullied. And around the time when I suffered from getting bullied, I started reading lots of comic books. And that's how comic book has become one of my primary inspiration. I think that might have been a form of escapism. I wish it to escape from the harsh reality by reading lots of comic books. And these things, I borrowed some elements from manga, comic books, and there are many characters like animals and human beings. Those all of the characters in the series of the work are different sides of myself. In my view, each individual has many different sides of themselves, like a good side or a bad side or something other side. But other people only see one or two of them. I try to describe myself in different times in different moods or under different circumstances or situations. And you can see there are many geometrical and mechanical figures in the drawings. They symbolize the people who I've met, who I've had a relationship with, and they're also symbolic of the events in the past which I've experienced or which I've been affected by. That's because we, in my opinion, we human beings are influenced by our past experiences and lives of others. And that's what I wanted to talk about in the ontology series through my visual vocabulary. Thank you very much.
Saba. Hi, I'm Saba. I'm very happy to be here and very excited to have my show in the McClure Gallery. First, I want to talk about, in general, about my work and what I do. I create work that are an investigation of self into complexities of womanhood. I create these universes that are inhabited by women, and they are the subjects and my characters in my work. They are based on my own experiences and the everyday events that I faced. These women are also investigating themselves, so there's a little bit of an absence of noise and silence in their worlds. They are engaged in dark, playful, and sometimes strange acts, but they're doing it in a very relaxed way and manner. In my work, these women are trying to show a challenge that I faced or dealt with, or sometimes they're kind of playfully showing a memory that I've had from my childhood, either in an exaggerated way or sometimes in just an altered version of the events. I take inspiration from Persian miniatures and paintings and folktales, where the characters are engaged in religious or methodological acts, and they're painted in great detail as to preserve the history and the identity and the memories, which kind of it is what I'm trying to do with my work. In the ceramic series that I'm showing here, like this work, they're mostly a single character that is sitting very calmly and it's just very calm and relaxed. In these works, I try to show the patterns and the motifs that I have drawn on their bodies, which they come from my inspirations from Persian textiles and fabrics, some of them that I researched and some that I have found in my own personal life and in my childhood. In a lot of the works, some of the works, these characters are engaged with their own hair, and it's kind of a fascination for me because when I went to school, I went to an all-girls school where we had to cover our hair, and even though most of the staff were female, we still had to cover our hair. And as a child, it's kind of difficult to understand the religious aspects of this idea, so it becomes a fascination and a focus, and that's why some of these paintings and sculptures that I've tried to work with that. There is a work in this series. It's called Homesick. It's a single character standing, and on her dress there is an image of a house. While it might be very random and it's just a normal house, to me it's very personal. It's a house that I grew up in, and I have a lot of my memories and adolescence memories there. So it has a personal touch in this work, and I guess a lot of the works in this series also have a personal touch. And although it might be relatable to a lot of people, they're definitely based out of my personal life and my own memories. There's a work that is called Almost Invisible in this series. It's a woman standing in front of a wallpaper, and she's kind of invisible as the patterns have covered herself. It's to say the role of the women and how they're portrayed in a lot of the cultures. Even though they might have very important jobs and roles in their lives, they're kind of in the background or not visible. And when we were installing these work, Renee told me of a word called wallflower. I didn't know the meaning of the word at the time. When I researched, it just means a person who's shy and not very talkative in social gatherings, which it reflects myself. So I think it's also another personal touch to this work. There are two works in this series that are called Break Time Games #1 and #2. It's this one and the one over there. And in these works, I try to portray my memories in the school. And break times, we used to play these games with my friends. And while the uniforms in my paintings are very colorful and joyful, we used to have very dark colored uniforms and boring and not happy and joyful at all. But what I remember from those days and what I try to remember from those days, it's the same memories and very playful and happy, although not in a very happy space. There's a work called Baggage. In this work, I try to talk about my identities that I've acquired through the years, through moving, growing up, immigration. I think you just have to adapt yourself to your situation and your surroundings, but you kind of keep your identities for yourself, and while you may not see them every day and while you may not show them every day, they're still with you and in you. Thank you.